This is the sweet sound of success with Sue Wilhite, Profit Attraction Master. Linda Shively is a best-selling author, award-winning speaker, neuroscience and mindset expert, as well as a certified laughter yoga leader. She has presented across the country, including at the prestigious Carnegie Hall. She has been a multiple-time guest and a host on cable television. She's been featured in a feature film with Winona Ryder and Jeff Daniels, and she's even performed at the Rose Bowl for over 90,000 people. After healing from an abusive marriage and navigating the diagnosis and eventual death of her 3-year-old daughter, Linda found her way to bounce back and reclaim her joy in life. Today, she helps successful women defeat the dragons in their life and elevate their joy to new levels. Welcome, Linda. I'm so excited to have you on the program. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here, Sue. Thank you.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. So just reading your bio, listeners and viewers are going to get a little taste ahead of time of what this is going to be like. And there's nothing like hearing it from the dragon's mouth, so to speak. So the format of the show is going to be around the entrepreneur's journey, the hero's journey for the entrepreneur's soul. And to that end, we're going to talk about Linda's ordinary beginning, ha ha ha, the call to action, the big hairy monsters that were big hairy monsters that you got to defeat, or at least make some kind of a negotiation with, and the allies, sidekicks, and mentors that helped you out, and the big one, returning home again. How do you deal with those people who say, when are you going to get a real job? So, Linda, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, my ordinary beginning, I was working in corporate. I was doing what everybody thought I should be doing, just minding my own business, having a good life, getting married like I thought I wanted to, being in that quote unquote perfect situation. So
Right.
not quite, but
Not
yeah.
quite. Now that's where you and I have a little bit in common, in that you were working in IT back in the day, and I was working in IT back in the day. And I was married and got out of a not horribly abusive marriage, but certainly not the perfect marriage. And so did you. So this was one of the instant points of connection that we had. It was so great. But you went a little bit farther with that.
So the next part of the journey that I share, basically December 2005 is when I had to make a really tough decision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a marriage that is abusive. I have to figure out how to get out of it with my severely handicapped 3-year-old daughter, Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
She has a progressive neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which has no treatment at the time and has the effect on her to have really weak muscles, does not affect her brain. She's brilliant, just can't sit, crawl, walk, swallow, and yet she has so much joy. She loves being around other people. She loves reading. She loves stickers. She loves zooming around in her power chair with the strength of her index finger.
Wow.
And the prognosis wasn't good. And she didn't know that. She kept going.
Right.
So in December, it was this decision. How do I get out? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How can I take care of her on my own? And on a Tuesday, it was a Tuesday afternoon, I brought her home from preschool. I put her down for a nap. I look at her nurse and I say, you pack up all of her medical equipment. I will get her clothes and her toys as soon as she wakes up. We're escaping.
Wow. Wow.
Exactly 2 weeks later, 2 days after Christmas, I held her as she took her last breath and died.
That is one of the worst things that anybody could ever experience.
Yeah, and I struggled. I had no idea what to do. I lost everything in a heartbeat. I lost my daughter, I lost my marriage, I lost my reason for being. And it was a challenge to reinvent myself and figure out, what am I meant to do? Why am I still here? What is going to be my purpose now that this has happened? And I knew that I discovered that the key, it's a secret. I mean, it's like, I'll tell you, but that secret resource that we all need is joy.
Yes.
Because without it, nothing seems to work. And when you have it, it's amazing and things flow much more easily. And the joy that she brought into my life is something that I continue to share. And I know I may have jumped a little bit ahead on your story outline, but we'll
Okay.
fill in some of the details.
You know, good plots don't always follow the same pattern, you know. We leap back and forth. Yeah. Yeah, you know, that if you've got joy, then, or if you can access joy, because we always have it,
Right.
right? It's whether we can access it,
Exactly.
whether we can pull apart the crud that covers it up
Exactly.
and let it come out and not allow that to kind of tamp things down.
Yeah, because the joy is there. And I've had people ask me, well, what's the difference between joy and happiness? Because we tend to relate more to happiness. We hear that more these days. What I've discovered is happiness is more related to a situation or an event, where joy doesn't really matter. It kind of goes through anything. So you can, I don't know if you saw the movie Inside Out.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes.
And the element of it is joy. I mean, spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen it, go watch it. But but it's been out for long enough that, I can.
Right. Just go watch it. If you haven't watched
it, if you haven't watched it, just go watch it. But joy and sadness can coexist.
Right.
And that's what I get from that movie and from life. So it's like, you don't have to have everything perfect to have joy. Just, you can have joy even if things aren't going the way you want them to go.
Right. Right. And so many people, and I know you can speak to this because you've probably talked to several dozen people, a few, that people think that if they're sad or someone around them is sad, then it's not okay for them to have joy or to even have happiness.
Oh, there's there's a lot of conflict around that, even within communities that are supporting people who are grieving. It's, it's like, oh, but I can't be happy. Why not? I can't have joy. Why not? It's part of who you are. We have all these emotions. We have this huge range of emotions.
Yes.
And that's okay. And I know you mentioned the laughter yoga earlier. That is something that I love doing with grief groups. Yeah. And talk about a brain twist, is to intentionally laugh when you're in a room full of parents whose children have died.
Right.
Is so powerful.
Yes. And I'm guessing that the experience would be they actually access their grief more, what's the word I'm looking for? Robustly? I- 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 Not necessarily easily, but the grief can be processed.
Right. Because it gets stuck
Right.
and, doesn't move around in the body. And so if you actually have an expression of the emotion, even if it's a different emotion, then you can
Yes.
tap into those emotions. So, yeah.
Right. Right. So so your call to action propelled you. Your call to action was also dealing with the hairy monsters. Or
Lots of hairy monsters.
the scaly monsters.
Well, yes, because as we had talked before, I named some of my monsters, and I don't really like to call them monsters because that, in some ways I have to be friends with them,
Right.
and they are part of what shows up, and I call them my joy stealing dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And these are dragons that are basically things that happen in a regular basis that make us have a harder time accessing joy. And I named them because it's more fun. And the,
Joy.
the the first one is second guessing Sally. And she wants you to second guess every decision, which also makes it challenging to make a decision,
Right.
which then means you don't get a whole lot done because you're battling back and forth. Do I go? Do I not go? Do I do this action? Do I take this project? Do I blah, blah, blah? And she just is insidious sometimes. And the second dragon I called No Good Nancy.
Mm.
And No Good Nancy wants you to believe that you were not born good enough,
Oh.
even though
Oh
you
yeah.
know that you are, but she wants you to believe that you weren't. And she will have ways of talking to you that sound something like, you're trying to do something like, you can't do that. You're not good enough. Or if you actually succeed, you could have done it better.
Right.
And it just goes on and on and on.
Right. You're
That
obviously a failure. You can't get anything done. Nobody will like you. Yeah.
blah, blah, blah,
Blah,
blah,
blah,
blah.
blah. Oh yeah.
And the third one I named Perfect Paula
Ooh.
because she doesn't let you do anything until everything is in its place. Everything is just so. And then you can take action, which again means nothing happens because I don't know, Sue, in your experience, but nothing is ever perfect. It just it's like, oh,
Yes.
I'll wait until this happens. The bank account has this much in it. Everybody's healthy. Life is good. There's always something.
Yes.
Uh,
One of my recent coaches pointed out that nature is messy. Nature doesn't create anything perfectly the first time. Nature is messy. So who are we to think we're perfect?
that's very, very interesting point. I haven't thought about it quite that way, but yeah. And then the fourth dragon is judging Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
And judging Jenny wants you to make sure that you're better than everybody else so that you feel better, or she'll judge you because you're comparing to other people, and it's just a disaster. And she loves her playground is social media
Ooh, yes.
because everywhere you look, you see pictures of people doing amazing things, having fabulous time in their life,
Right.
and you might not be.
Right.
Or you may be having a fabulous time And then you see some horrible thing that happened to a friend of yours, and it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so happy. Like what you talked about earlier. How can I be happy when this horrible thing is happening?
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Or you see other people uh, judging folks. The one that pops into my mind is Jason Momoa, who was Aquaman in the movie, and just for the movie he got totally ripped. Was absolutely had a gorgeous body, and after the movie, he got back to a normal body type, and people were shaming him because he didn't have six-pack abs anymore.
yeah, there is so much shaming and blaming and all of that, and then the fifth dragon is overwhelmed Ophelia.
Yeah.
And overwhelmed Ophelia wants you to have a tremendously long to-do list filled with activities that might not be that important,
Yeah.
just so that you can wear that badge of honor that says, I'm busy
And overwhelmed.
and overwhelmed. It's like, oh, I can't do anything because there's too much. Where do I even start?
Right.
So all of these dragons, if you let them into your life, they're gonna wreak havoc and not let you have the joy that you want or live in the way that you want to really serve the people that you're meant to serve,
Right.
be the person you want to be. Any of that.
Yes.
It just doesn't happen.
Right. Right. Yes. How can you as a person, let alone as an entrepreneur, do anything constructive when you've got these joy stealing dragons kicking sand in your face, essentially, and
Right.
not letting you do what you want to do?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't go very well.
Yeah, no. So, who were or what was um, some of the allies, mentors, sidekicks that you were able to utilize to help you with these joy stealing dragons, to help you get over this? And allies, by the way, just like your dragons, do not necessarily need to be a human being. They can be, a book, a movie, a resource of some kind.
There have been more allies and mentors and allies than I could list in the time that we have. However, to sum it up, I have learned from people who have been on this journey before in various ways. So it may not be I don't know somebody that's been on the exact same journey, but
Right.
I know people that are on the entrepreneurial journey. I know people that are on the grief journey. I know people that are on life journeys and have gained insight from them. And that is something that I've learned is like, you need to learn from the people who are doing something that you want to do, and they may be doing it a little bit better than you. And there are many people for whom have been that guide. And it may be for just an instant. It may be somebody that I know personally. It may be someone that I read a chapter of a book or saw a 5-minute video on YouTube. It could be anything. And I did have a friend when Jessica was first diagnosed who gave me a poem that really inspired me. And the gist of it is that you have a choice in how you deal with circumstances. It's like, it doesn't matter what happens because we can't control what happens,
Right.
but we can control how we react to that, what we do with it. And that has helped guide me in various ways, because that kind of has become my motto, is you get to choose.
Right.
You can't choose what happens to you, but you can choose what you do with it.
Right.
So
Although in my philosophy, I believe that you do choose your reality. So, if you choose
Whether
that reality,
that, I mean, an event may happen,
right,
and then that's debatable. It's like who chooses it and how it happens. But
right,
anyway,
right.
an event
Yes.
happens. Everyone can agree that that event happened, but the meaning of that event is different for each person.
Yes. Yes,
And
absolutely.
you get to
Boy, have
choose
we seen that lately.
and you get to choose the meaning of that. Yes.
Yes. And you get to choose what your response to it is.
Yes, your meaning and your response.
Yes.
Because we will all have a reaction,
Yes.
but what we do with that reaction is important.
Absolutely.
I mean, like
Absolutely.
if a loud noise happens, you're going to get startled. But what do you choose to do with that startle? Is it start yelling at everybody and freaking out? Or is it curiosity and I wonder what happened? Or, something else? Ignore it?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Ultimately, you always choose your response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, it's beautiful. And then you find out whether that choice works for you or not, and you get to choose again.
Exactly. And if it really doesn't work, then try something different.
Choose again. Yes. It's one of my favorite improv exercises is the choose again exercise where the people will be setting a scene and somebody off camera or off out of the scene says choose again, and the person who has just said a line needs to come up with a completely different line in the moment. I love watching professionals do that. It's so cool.
And if you're doing it yourself, it's a great stretch.
It can be a stretch. It's a little bit like log rolling when you've never done that before. With all of those allies, resources, mentors that you have worked with, what have you been able to do with telling people who don't understand the entrepreneurial journey what that's all about?
Oh, you mean, do you really have a job? And
Do you really have a job? Aren't you going to get a real job?
well,
Um,
at least in the present moment, the fact that I work from home is not unusual because
right.
lots of people are now working from home who didn't before. However, I haven't had that question very often.
Uh-huh. Good.
I think when I made the decision to leave corporate, which was a huge decision, it was about 10 years after my daughter died, and I got that 10-year notice. I'm like, I'm still here. And, most people would be happy and celebrating that they got a 10-year award. And I'm like, oh boy,
Right.
did I really just do this for a decade?
Right.
And I told my coworkers that I was leaving. And when I said what I was doing, they were like, well, of course you are. Of course you're going to go speak. Of course you're going to go coach people because, it's like, we're going to miss you around here, but we're super happy for you and have no doubt that you're going to succeed. And so I've had tremendous support from friends and family in that regard.
Nice.
And so I haven't had that reaction typically. So I recognize that it happens. Thankfully, I haven't had to address it quite in that way.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's wonderful because I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs out there who are dealing with um, like I said, designing a new t-shirt. Isn't CEO a good enough job? Or my job is CEO, something like that. I mean,
Well,
Really?
see, I don't call myself a CEO. I call myself
Yeah.
a chief joy officer.
There we go.
That's much more fun.
It's much more fun. Yes,
It's like,
actually,
I don't want to be the chief operating officer or chief
right.
executive officer. I mean, that's just like boring. It
Uh,
might be true, but it's like, but I want it to be
yes,
fun.
yes. Well, I'm the chief empowerment officer.
There you go.
So it,
I thought about that, and that I align with that as well. But
yeah,
for me, the joy was important. So the
right,
initials are different.
right. Yeah. So let me ask you a question out of the blue, as it were. Woo. What is your favorite part about your job? What it is that you do?
Being a witness to someone else's ahas,
Hmm.
when they truly understand who they really are
Right.
and they get it, and I get to be a witness to that, whether it's an aha when I'm speaking or an aha when I'm coaching somebody one-on-one, that
Yeah.
that is what does it for me.
Right. When the lights go on behind the eyes and they go, oh, oh, that. Yeah.
Or
This,
or this problem that they've had for as long as they can remember is gone.
right.
That,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's lovely. Yeah. So, Linda, how can people get a hold of you if they want to negotiate with their dragons and allow them to be what they are and not mess up your life? How can people get a hold of you?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say about that is I have a gift for your listeners
Ooh,
because,
presents.
yes, presents. And this is something that I use regularly. It's a meditation that right now people are so stressed out, and I
Right.
meditate every day. And sometimes I'll actually listen to this one that I did, but I wanted to give it to your listeners because you don't need to dedicate an hour to meditation. You can, but you can have a few minutes of meditation and get powerful results. And so starting your day off with it, in the middle of the day, if it's been kind of a hectic day, or at the end of the day, it's something that you can use. And they can get that at myjoydrivenlife.com/Sue,
Aw,
because I wanted it to be special for you.
you. And we will have that link available for you. It should be showing up on the screen as we speak, as well as in the outro, the afterword for this. And so thank you very much, Linda. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift of your time in being on the show, and to give our listeners a special thank you. Um, could you do the very good exercise with me to thank our listeners?
I definitely will. I will move a little bit further away from my
Oh yeah,
microphone, but
absolutely. Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
ready.
Very,
Very good. Very
very
good.
good. Yay!
Yay!
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And please enjoy the sweet sound of success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.